Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Here to do a video about the band MIDLAKE. They're from, I believe, Denton, Texas. I just pulled their Wikipedia page up and, yep. And they have a new album that just was released last week, March 18th, 2022, called For the Sake of Bethel Woods. Now, just to give as brief as possible in my background with MIDLAKE, the thing about them is I remember hearing their name in 2006, maybe even been before that, but I always associated with sometime among the kind of Pitchfork, hipster, national, NPR station, that kind of group, indie, whatever. I heard their name a bunch of times, and I thought they looked like another one of those names that I've seen before. There's one artist who has a name that's kind of similar. Anyway, I didn't think much of them, but then I heard the song Roscoe. I don't listen to the current 89.3 The Current, but I heard it on there, I'm pretty sure. And then I think the biggest thing was my Sound Opinions, which aired on The Current at the time, that the rock and roll music talk show, Jim DeRogatis and Greg Kot, that they modeled themselves after at the movies with Siskel and Ebert. But the song Roscoe was it sounded a lot like Fleetwood Mac. Sung Rhiannon especially. So they put out this record, and eventually I got access to it and listened to it, and then eventually found a copy. I can see the date. This was 10/12. It doesn't give me the year. It's October 12th when this was actually showed up at Cheapo. But the Trials of Van Occupanther. Which was their second album. And I like this album. When I did 2006 albums, it's on my list, I think. I need to do an updated list, but it's in like top 20 probably, because I didn't have that many records from 2006. I remember thinking this record was not just about Roscoe, but Roscoe was always the song that always kind of resonated and I always thought of for them. I did revisit it yesterday though, and I guess, from looking at, it's kind of hit and miss, but I mean, its best music is really good. And I guess musically, the other thing I'll say is that the vocals, the vocalist and the vocal style is kind of similar throughout a lot of the music. It's let's see here, Bandits, Head Home. Head Home's really good. Young Bride, We Gather in Spring, and It Covers the Hillsides. I mean, musically it's like they're psychedelic, folk, rock of sorts. They use piano, a lot of great atmosphere, a lot of dreamy atmosphere. They use some extra instrumentation once in a while. But I mean, this album got a lot of praise. It's still their highest rated album on Rate Your Music. I think most people, when they think of MIDLAKE, they think of this their second album from 2006, The Trials of Van Occupanther. So I'm kind of guilty, but they put out since this album 2 other albums, and I did listen to them. I know members have left too. Hold on a second. That's kind of weird because I thought it was called something else, but they had an album in 2010 called The Courage of Others, which I remember listening to that and thinking it wasn't as good as this. I don't know. I remember, and it was honestly, to be honest, forgettable, but actually it's interesting from a chart standpoint on Wikipedia. That's their highest charted album, although it only hit 94 in the U.S. So that charted higher than Trials of Van Occupanther. Number 21 in Belarus, I think it is, Belgium rather. Number 15 in Sweden, number 18 in the UK. But so that was 2010. So that was 4 years later. And then in 2013, they released Antiphon. And that one, I remember listening to a little bit, and again, I got a similar vibe with band Black Mountain, where I liked the one record, it wasn't even their first record, and then every record they put out since I just kind of listened to and just forgot about. I thought they had one other, but I know that the membership changed. Tim Smith, one of 3 Tim Smiths, because there was a Tim Smith with Licorice Quartet and Jellyfish. Then there's Tim Smith, I believe, with like the Cardiacs. I'm not sure, or I may be thinking of the band from the '90s that was kind of Britpop that had the one prog album, Manson. I can't remember. Anyway, Tim Smith. It's a common name, the name like Tim Smith. But so the other main thing is, so I mean, yeah, I just kind of like, yeah, I had the CD, I bought the CD, I remember liking Roscoe and some other songs on here, but I never think that Midlake would ever really do much more that I would love. But, you know, if their name pops up, I might check it out. And in 2013, that's 9 years ago now. I saw that their new record, For the Sake of Bethel Woods, came out. I was like, all right, check it out. But the other main reason why I had them in my consciousness is a couple of years ago, one of the members, I mean, he's the lead singer, but because they have a couple different singers. Eric Polito ended up releasing a record under the name E.B. the Younger, and I think the name of the record is something else. Let's see here. I'm not sure if it was E.B. the Younger, the album. My internet's gonna work. I don't have it, but I got it digitally, and anyway, I'll just say I think it was 2019. And while I haven't been like obsessed with that record, I've been listening to it. There's a gentleman who goes to record store. I haven't seen him post videos in a couple of years, but he would buy a lot of records, and he liked a lot of. I call him a lot of the indie kind of, you know, pitchfork kind of music, but he liked a lot of stuff like that Jake Rude does too, that kind of new wave, post-punk. I don't know if I'm stereotyping his taste, but anyway, he talked about, he bought, I think, the vinyl, and he mentioned Midlake, and I'm like, I'll check that out, and I really liked E.B. the Younger, which I can't, you know, again, I can't find the album in here. Actually, there's a way I could find it. I know it's called, let's see, E.B. To Each His Own, it's called. Anyway, E.B. the Younger's To Each His Own for 2019 is kind of it's kind of like, it sounds very 70s-ish, almost yacht rock-ish, synthesizers and stuff like that, warm feeling, and the hooks and the atmosphere are really good on it. And I kind of felt like when I heard that, I'm like, this is one of the guys from Midlake. He might be the lead singer, Eric Polito. You know, Midlake, I'm curious about another Midlake more than I would have been because of that record. That was just a couple years ago in 2019. So then they just last week put out the newest record, and again, I'm not 100% certain on the lineup, For the Sake of Bethel Woods. I'm looking at the bottom now. The Bandcamp page doesn't tell. I know that's the biggest thing with a lot of Midlake fans is that their membership in the band has not been like always the same. I had it here. I'm looking on their Wikipedia page. Does it even tell you? Tim Smith isn't with the band anymore, but Eric Nicholson, Mackenzie Smith, Scott Lee, Eric Polito still, and that's the reason. So, I'd say this. So I've listened to this new album, For the Sake of Bethel Woods, at least 3 to 4 times. I've probably listened to it 4 times in full. And I've listened to parts of it more than that. And I like every track. Now, I mean, is there a song that's as memorable as Roscoe from here? Maybe not. However, oh man, just the piano, the vocals sound a little different. I mean, I listened to this and listened to that record the last few days and last week. The singer is, whether it be Eric Polito or it's one of the other members, because I know like on the Rate Music page he's not listed as the only singer. I don't know if it's Eric Nicholson. Anyway, the vocal style is he sounds a little bit like Jerry Garcia, a little bit like Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues, and a little bit like there's one other singer. But this album is just consistent track to track. That's part of it. I have Van Panther thrown up there. My favorites early on are probably the second track, Bethel Woods. I mean, the opening track, Commune, is just like a little intro piece, like a lot of these albums have, including the new Team Me album. But Feast of Carrion is really nice. But then the last 2 tracks, The End and Of Desire, are both also highlights. They're using like a lot of piano synthesizers. The drum work is really tight. It sounds very much like a 70s production style, like, which is Midlake has always come across that way to me. While they are a new band, not like Wolfmother exactly, but they always kind of have like a 70s pastiche or a 70s production approach, instrumentation, mixing. It's very organic, very acoustic. I mean, they remind me a little bit of that band Other Lives, which originally were the band I actually prefer their first album. They have a weird name, but where they kind of have a Pink Floyd element, and they use piano a little bit like the pre-Dark Side of the Moon, the Dark Side of the Moon Pink Floyd. Remind me a little bit of them. The band Other Lives. I mean, again, I'm forgetting they have a weird name, and there's like Jethro Tull moments in here, and it's just. I mean, Glistening is great. You know, some of these songs kind of reveal themselves over some time. I think what it is, Noble or Gone. I think it's Noble. Both those songs are kind of lengthy, but they're worth the wait, worth the effort, worth the patience, I guess you could say. I think that part of it is like those other records that came out after this, and even this to an extent, but especially the ones after, just kind of had like that molding of just folk rock, but it was just like sounding like folk music with psychedelic folk. I mean, it's the quote-unquote freak folk. All these different bands have done that in the quote-unquote indie scene, college scene, alternative scene. I mean, the Pitchfork scene. And this record doesn't really come across that much like that. Both vocally, it varies enough, and the vocals are a little more... You know, there's a lot of vocal harmonies and stuff. It's more dreamy, and there's more there's flute. There's definitely a lot of flute. I mean, it's almost like early Genesis, like Trespass era Genesis, some of that. I mean, I'm not saying, I don't know if Midlake is going to be kind of coming as a comeback, because I think they did sort of go on a hiatus, because they had all these years where they didn't release music, even 2006, 2010, and then 2013 to now. I should show one other piece I do own, because this is kind of a video not only about their new album, which I'm going to probably buy now, I'll show it when I get a physical copy, but I do have this 12-inch single. It's called Am I Going Insane, which I believe it says it's a Black Sabbath cover, and has a B-side of Will Self. Or, no. Oh, maybe this is a split. That's why I never realized when I bought this. This is only Midlake. This is actually a split. So this is just their cover of that Black Sabbath track, which came out in 2011, so it would have been after The Courage of Others. And I'll admit that having now really liking For the Sake of Bethel Woods, and then revisiting Trials of Van Occupanter, I want to go back and listen to Courage of Others especially. And their first album, which, I thought I listened to when I got into Van Occupanter, but I don't have much memory of it. So that their first album, which, again, it's a weird title, The Man and Silver Cork. I think I used to see it sometime. I even saw it on vinyl. Which... I don't think I have, because I would have found it. I don't have Van Occupanter on vinyl, and I think I've seen it and just passed on it, but now I think I probably won't hesitate. But this is just a 12-inch single, a 45. Yeah, so it's a split. So but it was just after The Courage of Others. So the B-side is this band called Will Self, and the song The Happy Detective, which I don't know. Late Night Tales. That's the label, maybe. I don't know if I haven't listened to it. Honestly, I bought this. I was like, oh, it's Midlake. It was only $3. I can't remember when I bought it. It wasn't that long ago. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago. But not interesting artwork, but I didn't realize it was a split. But yeah, this record is really a surprise. It reminds me a little bit of last year with Biffy Clyro's record. It kind of surprised me. I mean, I really enjoyed the early Biffy Clyro, but over the last 6, 7, 8 years, they released a few records, and I just were underwhelmed by them. And also Mastodon, who a band I kind of wrote off. Both of them put out albums I enjoyed a lot last year. So I would sort of look at those two albums as comebacks. And then I would definitely say this new Midlake album, For the Sake of Bethel Woods, a comeback as well. I mean, it happens sometimes. I mean, for everyone like this, you get a bunch of records that are just kind of par for the course, or just kind of they sound like they're going through motion, or the style the band's looking to do is not what it doesn't do as much for me. Margo the Nuclear So-and-So's was a band I want to do a video about. they're a perfect example of that, where the first few records I really love, and then membership changes and I just jump ship. But I guess it's not shocking to a point, but it's very surprising that this album is as good as it is. And I mean, at this point, I'm not sure this might be my favorite record of 2022. The Feast of Carrion, Noble, Gone. I mean, there's just a lot of cool, like dreamy, instrumentation and atmosphere in this record, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. And then there's more punch. There's more sort of this little part, little harpsichord or analogs, a lot of analog synthesizers. This little segue here and there. I mean, it's revealing a lot, and it's almost in some ways like a reinvention of their sound. Although I was saying that the whole E.B. the Younger record is, I thought what made a difference, and stylistically maybe it would sound like that. I think stylistically there's a difference between what Eric Polito did on that record and on the new For the Sake of Bethel Woods, but I can sort of follow why, from a songwriting standpoint and just production even, why this album came out at least of a similar quality. I would probably put this above that record now after listening to. I even listened to E.B. the Younger about 3 times in the last 9 months. I just would put it on. I have it on a flash drive in my car. So anyway, so what's your take on Midlake? I mean, you want to call them prog? I would say they are prog to a small degree. They aren't typical prog. They're not about technicality, and they're not about necessarily long epics. Although they are definitely about clever production and, not typical instrumentation, and then also somewhat complex arrangements. Not excessive, but it's definitely less is more, but enough to kind of think it's left to center. It's not pop music either exactly, but it's left to center. Yeah, it's cool, atmospheric, psychedelic folk rock, I guess you could call it. But this new album, I mean, the use of piano especially. I wish I could remember the name of the Other Lives band, who are from Oklahoma, actually, the band I'm thinking of. Their first album, I have on CD. I remember some of the Casfly fans previously known as, if the internet wants to work up here when I pause it. Tunic, Flight of the Flins. Totally. I mean, I'm not sure if they're identical, but Flight of the Flins from Kunik, which the band became Other Lives. I haven't enjoyed Other Lives as much as that first album under the name Kunik they did. It just somehow works. If you like Atom Heart Mother and Obscured by Clouds to a point, metal a little bit. The early Pink Floyd, the post-Syd Barrett, pre-Dark Side Floyd, where Richard Wright was in some ways the primary songwriter and did a lot of lead vocals, where they used piano, and it was just so much less is more, so not melancholy, but just subtle, pleasant, engaging, relaxing, but also just kind of engaging, folk rock, whatever you want to call it, psych folk rock. Flight of the Flins, I had that, I'll have to show it someday, would be one, but definitely Midlake, and not only the new record, but this, and again, I may revisit. I mean, when I buy the record, I'll end up trying to revisit. And I'll make some comments about The Courage of Others and Antipon and that first record of theirs, which I thought I looked on here and it was called something else. Like Rate Your Music had it named as titled as something else. I mean, I probably should do some homework just as far as reading the Wikipedia page to know the exact membership differences. This is like Faith No More when Jim Martin left, or who knows, a lot of bands, they have a key member leave, but their sound actually changes but for the better in some ways. And why they were My Morning Jacket. Yeah, I mean, I guess My Morning Jacket, the freak, people call it freak folk. I don't think it's freak, but I think Midlake stood out to a small degree among some of these other bands. There's the band Fields, who aren't around anymore, from England. They put out a record that was very folky prog. I mean, people want the word prog. Fine. Oh, well, let's call, John Grant's mentioned, let's call Midlake prog. They're a small, I know prog folks like them. A lot of them do. So there's enough moments that you could call their music progressive. But yeah, I'm going to revisit Bam Nan and Silvercock that came out in 2004 was their debut album. And then The Courage of Others and Antiphon, given the fact I've gotten so into For Sake of Bethel Woods from 2022, they have a bunch of other singles and EPs though, but they had this range of time where they just were dormant, you know. The last thing listed here, Antiphon came out in 2013. They released something as a single or an EP called Antiphon in 2016, and The Fairest Way, and The Old and the Young. But that, you know, their newer record is their first album in at least 6 years, but it's really full length. It's really been almost 9 years. So, but again, what's your take on Midlake? Check it out if you've never checked it out. I'll leave a link to the Spotify and Bandcamp page, and we'll see you next time.